episode of the Think and Grow podcast with your host, Dr. Z.
And Professor P.
We are so excited for our guest today is Dr. Lulu. And Dr. Lulu is a momatrician, pediatrician, author, public speaker, coach for parents of the LGBTQ plus children.
Community.
That would make me laugh.
Community,
yes. Definitely.
So Dr. Lulu, take it away. Tell us about yourself.
I was saying thank you for taking your time to say the letters out. Each one matters. We all struggle with visibility. Everybody wants to be seen and heard. And so if there's a letter there, people say alphabet soup, they call it alphabet community, but the truth is it's all part of the homophobia. If you take your time to say the letters out correctly, each person feels seen. So I appreciate you starting with just saying the letters out. So my name is Dr. Lulu. I am a pediatrician. That was my claim to fame for 30 plus years. And then in 2020, I learned accidentally that my eldest child identified as trans, actually as non-binary, first of all. And while I was still trying to wrap my head around that, a year later, it was just kind of dropped on my lap. So, Mom, by the way, I'm transgender on Christmas Day. So I was like, okay, what do we do? So I literally took off running. And I know when I say that, people think, well, I'm not joking. I ran to the mall, which is about a 25-minute run. I had to get out and get some air. And so that part is true. But the part that I kind of made up is that when I got to the mall and I looked back, I saw all of them that were there. Fear, guilt, shame, overwhelm, confusion. They were like, where are you going, sis? We came with you. And that is what happens when a parent, especially a Black immigrant parent's child, drops those what we call bombs. No parent ever wants to hear that, but it is true. And so the whole idea is, do you create more damage by not affirming your child? Or do you do damage control by going to help your child with the journey from here on out? Because a lot of times I know my child said, Mom, you were very transphobic when I was young. My house was very transphobic. And I know exactly what the child meant. I was the first one to say, well, why does that person have to be so girly? Why can't he just act like himself? Why does he have to be so gay? Why? And I did that even as I was married to my ex-wife, because there's something called internalized homophobia, where you, as a queer person, it only occurs obviously because it's internalized homophobia, it only occurs in people who are actually queer. We have this sense of self-deprecation, self-hatred, lack of self-acceptance, because the world has told us that there's something wrong with us. You shouldn't be alive. You should be killed in some states, in some countries, right? You should not exist. But what they forget is what I say all the time, that if you took all the gay people, all the queer people, and killed all of them today, incinerated every last one of their bones, in exactly 40 weeks, new ones will be born, because homosexuals are made by heterosexuals. And so what we need to do is step back and check ourselves and see where is that hatred, that fear, where does it come from?
Right.
Analyzing it. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2.5 years. And it's, it's fun. It's fun. Once you face your fears, the only place you can go from there is up. And I want to tell other parents that it's possible. You can do it, because guess what? I always end my emails with PS, your child is waiting. Your child is waiting. So thank you for the space. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love that. So what really I'm excited about having you on today is, let's mention the I word. One of my favorite words, actually, which is ignorance. And when people think, oh my God, they're really ripping on me because they just called me ignorant. And I think oftentimes that word is taken out of context, because when you really think about it, you're ignorant. It sounds, and it usually comes across with a tone, which makes it even worse. But people are frustrated, and what it really means is that you just don't know. You're uninformed. So I'm so excited to have you take us through everything today because you already mentioned binary. I'm thinking that it's great for our audience because they're going to hear a lot of things, terms that they're like, what the heck does that mean? So if you're on, the he, her, all the things you see on LinkedIn and other places where people are declaring who they are and all these different things, this is awesome for you. I see that. See, I'm half full to overflowing. I start out the day half full, and by the end, I'm usually overflowing. It's just give me another beer because I'm celebrating because I had another great day, right? So with all that blabber, take us through it. Tell us,
Well, I think the
what
first
is
thing,
non-binary, and just take us through the whole process and how you can educate and share with everybody, whichever way you would like today.
I think the fair, to be fair to you, there's no podcast, no 1 hour long podcast that is long enough for years. I'm 54. My next birthday I'll be 55. There's no podcast out there that is long enough to teach 55 years of knowledge, because I was that child that told my dad when I was 16 that I also liked girls. So I happen to be, I prefer to use queer, but I'm proudly bisexual, and I've always been. And what I want the parents to understand is that it's not a reflection on you. What we do when we run away and when we're afraid and when we antagonize is we make it about ourselves. Oh my God, my child is going to shame me. Oh my goodness, what are my neighbors going to say? What is my dad going to say? How am I going to tell my father? All of these things,
Right.
when we internalize it, we make it about us and we forget the child. We forget that in today's world, no child is going to, with that's right thinking mind, will say, "Oh, mom, let me have a serving of gay and a side of fries." Nobody wants to be LGBT today because there's so much homophobia and transphobia, and actually, people want you dead. So I mean, imagine that the child who is already black in America, that I spell with 3 Ks, right? Now is also transgender or is also gay. Imagine that child, what that child is facing already. So let's call a thing a thing. And it's funny you said I. When you said I went to intersex. Most people forget that that's one of the letters. So the the whole acronym as it stands today is LGBTQIAA2S. Wow. That's where we are today. So most people don't know that, but the I there, I know Dr. Z knows because it stands for intersex. Up to 2% of today's world population are born intersex, which means that the person has a combination or a varying combination of both male and female chromosomes or internal genital organs or external genital organs. So what we do is, as parents and as physicians and as pediatricians, when that child is born, we first start by naming the child, ambiguous genitalia, or androgen sensitivity syndrome or something. We put a big name to it. And then we choose the gender that we assign to the baby. We choose that. And usually in medicine, it is quote unquote easier to construct of a JJ. So we assign them a default female gender. Now here's the catch. There is gender assignment, which is what I just talked about. It's a boy, it's a girl. That's what I discussed in my most recent TEDx talk. We assign the baby that. But gender identity is an internal, personal sense of who you are as either male or female, somewhere in between, which is gender fluid, a combination of both, which is bigender or 2S, or neither, which is agender or non-binary. So it's not, like I said, it's not something I'm just going to sit down, okay, here's your dinner, eat your dinner, 10 minutes, you're done. It's a lot. It's a lot of
Yeah.
processes, it's a lot of layers. And so I, as your child, because I was that queer teenager,
Right.
and
Mm.
today I, as you, because I'm a parent of a queer child, I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
But because I get it, I also know that it's doable. You
Mm.
can support, you can affirm, you can accept your child. I haven't mentioned you can understand. I
Mm.
say that because some of the children do not even understand what's happening. And I mentioned that in my
Yeah.
second TEDx talk. So I have three talks out there. The
Nice.
second one, I talk about this fact that a child may not fully understand because in their brain, their body is telling them, their brain is saying that you're a girl. But outside, everyone is telling them you're a boy.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
want you to take a moment and imagine the child. Now,
Yeah.
no amount of political rhetoric, no amount of Republican laws, no amount of outlawing it is going to change the fact that I wake up every morning as a girly girl. I see myself in the mirror as a woman, which is what is called cisgendered. Nothing can change that. And that
Yeah.
is why, if you're not transgender, you cannot open your mouth and tell someone that they're not, because that's how they see themselves. You can call it a mental health disorder if you like, you can call it whatever you like, but you don't get a say. You don't get to tell the child that they are not what their brain offers them. That's like me
Right.
saying, Zelda, you're not black, or you're
Yeah.
not white, or Dr. Z, Dr. P, you're not white. It's not something, I don't have a say in it. But what happens is, it's easier for society to assume that we're binary, which means either male or female,
Right.
Oh,
because there's a majority religion called Christianity, which
Mm.
believes that God only created Adam and Eve. And I want to go in there for a minute and play with their monkeys in their brain for a minute. It makes sense that God, in the beginning, for the sake of procreation,
Mm.
created a male and a female for that. But you cannot tell me that God did not create the intersex. 2% of 8 billion is a lot of people. And so, if God made that person whole and complete, then can God also make someone who believes in their brain that they are cisgendered or transgendered? Why do we have to
Mm.
go meddling in their brain and telling them that they're not who they say they are? That is the
mm.
argument.
Yeah,
And
it's
then,
interesting.
yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say
Sorry.
it's interesting that you mentioned the intersex because I have seen. So I'm a forensic pathologist, and so I
Mm-hmm.
have had cases where somebody had undergone surgery to become a female
Mm.
who
Mm-hmm.
was intersex, and
Yes.
then later on had subsequent surgeries because of
To,
complications
yes.
and started abusing drugs, and
Mhm.
that's how they ended up on my autopsy table. So,
Mm.
we're seeing less of that. I think as parents are gaining an awareness not to, you know, go the surgical route
Mm-hmm.
and allow the children to decide which
Yes.
makes the most sense for them,
For
but they can at least
them.
keep the genitalia that God gave them.
Mm-hmm.
But how do
That
you
is so powerful. Even before we go
coach?
to your question, even
Yeah,
before we
how
go
do
to your
you?
Before you get to
Oh,
this
I'm sorry. You want
question,
to say?
even
I'm
before
sorry.
you
oh,
get
we all
even
want to talk.
I want no even before you get to the question, I want to affirm that statement
Uh,
that people do get surgery to to make them a default gender
yeah,
externally,
yeah,
but internally that's not who they are, and that makes sense why when they get older they're like, well, this is not actually not who I am. And so
yeah.
they now go back and do surgery. And I wanted to go there because that is what I describe as childhood trauma
Mm,
extraordinaire, if there's ever one. Childhood trauma is the number one, as you know, based on the ACEs study, cause of substance abuse,
Yeah.
Hmm.
mental health challenges, and your good old friend suicide.
Right.
But what the drug companies want you to think is, well, it's a chemical imbalance. Let's give you some more medicine whose side effects, by the way, is suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
it's a capitalistic world. Let's make money out of this pill rather
Right.
than going back to address what happened to that child.
Yeah.
What actually
Hmm.
happened to a child who was happy at 2 months, happy at 2 years, and at 20 years want to kill themselves? What
Right.
happened? So, anyway, that's why
What's
my
happening?
suicide.
So
Yeah,
sorry to
exactly.
break in here, but I think this
Mhm.
is really important. I wasn't even aware of this. A couple years ago, we watched this Netflix brain stuff. I love documentaries. I'm a highly, you know, I love books and all that learning, right? Anything to learn. And I'm like, oh my God, they had this show. One of the episodes was the adolescent brain. I'm like,
Mhm.
adolescent brain? What's that? Well, you watch the episode. I highly recommend everybody track it down and go watch it because it's so interesting that, that adolescent brain and risk taking, all these things that kids do. It seems like the magic numbers, 13 or so from puberty. And then they say usually around 25, that's when that brain you finally mature and you got all these young, especially young men are doing stupid stuff like lighting things off on fire and jumping off of things and taking all these crazy risks, right? So I can only imagine how does that play and make this even a more complicated situation,
Complicated
right?
situation. I love what you said because that is one of the arguments of the people on the, I don't know what side of the aisle, but let's just go left for the sake of conversation. The people on the left hand side who are like, well, the child is too young. How does the child know? I love that question because what I say to them is when you go back to pediatrics, which I just happen to be a pediatrician, gender recognition by any child begins at the age of 2, which means that usually by the age of 4, a cisgendered boy knows that they're a cisgendered boy, that they're a boy. A cisgendered girl knows that she's a girl. And so the argument, therefore, is if those two people know, then why does the child who is trans not know? If you know that you are a girl in a girl's body, then you also know that you are a girl in a boy's body. You may not have the verbiage, you may not understand it, you may not get it, but that doesn't mean you don't have the inkling. Most people who are transphobic do not know a transgender person. The study came out in the UK last week. 70 to 80% of hardcore transphobes do not know a single transgender person. To
Mm.
even take a chance to ask them, they will tell you, my child will tell you, Mom, I've always felt like a girl. And it's funny because when the child was growing up, I always said, stop acting like a girl. Stop acting like a girl. Why do you keep acting like a girl? And now she goes by she, her, they, them. She said, Mom, how is a girl? I said, the way you're acting is like a girl. You're not a girl. Stop acting like a girl. I said that all the time, which is why she declared that she made it. She said, Mom, you were very transphobic when I was growing up. So I
Mm.
want us to hear when a child is transgender, if you look at the Human Rights Campaign website, there are 3 things that occur. Number one, the I is the child is insistent that they are not the gender you're raising them as. The second thing, the child is consistent in that, Mom, I am not a girl. I don't like wearing dresses or whatever. Then the third one is the child is persistent. The behavior does not go away. So ICP insisting, Mom, no, I am. And then what do you tell them? Go to your room, go to the psychiatrist, go get some medication. Let's fix this, right? The child consistently says, Mom, but this is how I feel. This is how I feel. And what do you tell them? You're crazy. How can you say that? What do you mean? Who's been messing with you? Is the social media? Is and then the behavior persists into adulthood. You ask a transgender person the question about transgenderness. You don't ask
The
a cis
child is
person.
thinking, I got to jump in here. They're thinking, What are you talking about? Nothing's broken. What are we fixing? We got
Well,
to fix you because you don't understand.
exactly, but
Right?
it's but I also want to say that it's not only a child. The P, persistent, means it goes into adulthood. We have a lot of trans people who live as, the word is stealth, STEALTH,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that they will never tell you for fear of the danger of being
Yeah.
killed, of being kicked out. 33%
Mhm.
of houseless youth today, 33% of houseless youth today are LGBTQ kids. And
Mm-hmm.
those are only those that raise their hands. Many will never tell you because they don't want you to abuse them and kill them. Black transgender women, my child, have the highest rate of homicide. They're killing them. Why? Because we have men who want to live on the down low. They have sex with them. They see them. They think they're women. Then they have sex with them. Then they kill them because they have this shame. Oh my God, what did I just do? How dare I, have sex with this person? I thought she was a girl, then it's about them, and then they feel so much shame that they kill the person. Listen, come out of your own closet.
Yeah.
Live your life. Don't
Right.
kill somebody. My child is on her way to Florida today. She's a she's a lecturer. She teaches students SATs. She teaches math and science and English and music because she's a Stanford trained award-winning person. She got a full scholarship to Stanford
Yeah.
for music performance. When she actually went in for science, for computer science and technology, but then she switched to music. But she got the award of excellence from when she was graduating from Stanford for the best student graduation from the year of 2020. The
Wow.
point I'm making is a smart person, right? But
Mhm.
today there's a travel advisory to the state of Florida. And I said, baby girl, are you sure you want to go? You know what she said? She said, Mom, I've never been happier than I've been in my life, living now as my true person.
Mhm.
What's going to happen is going to happen.
Yeah.
Imagine your child telling you that. What's going to happen is going to happen because she
Yeah.
is so confident in being finally who she is. She's like, you know what? Let it happen. But I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
not be who I am. I'm not going to not live my life for fear of, you know what I mean? Like, think about that. Jesus did the same thing. Jesus said, you know what? Let what's happen is going to happen. I'm going to get killed, but I'm still going to take the message that I was given to deliver to the people. He
She's
knew he
been let
was
out
going
of
to be
jail,
killed.
right? She's been let out of jail. She's been in jail for all this time to a
Well,
certain
yeah,
extent,
yeah. I mean,
right?
I get that picture. Yes, the point is that they're finally free, and that's what I
Right.
want to tell parents. I said parents that want to mourn and cry and make a big fuss about, oh, my child is transgender. Oh my goodness, my child is trans. I want those parents to understand that your child is finally being their true selves. So rather than
Mhm.
crying and mourning and expectation, because that's what it was on your part. You were expecting your child to be someone else. Your child is actually this person. My kid said, why don't the parents celebrate
Right.
the child's authenticity?
Right.
I
Why
I
are they,
think
go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, I think yes, celebrate, but I also mourn, right? Because that's part of it. I think to suppress our emotions, like we're talking about sharing and being true to our emotions.
Hmm.
So there does likely need to be a period of mourning
Hmm.
because of the expectation. You know, you had, let's say you had a daughter and
Hmm.
now you have a son, right? It's still the same
Child. It's
person,
the same
but the
child, yes.
expectations of shopping for the wedding dress or
Hmm.
with the baby, and maybe there will be still be a baby,
Yeah.
but so I think there has to be a period of mourning and not necessarily feeling that because you feel sad that you're not supportive. Because I've
Yeah.
definitely heard that from parents that
Yeah.
am I not being supportive because I mourn the change from having a daughter to now having a son.
I think you're right in the sense that the parents should ask themselves that question. What I this is the woman who took off running after she heard the news. So I'm not here to invalidate their emotions. What I'm here to do is shine light on the fact that in my case, my child finally told me at the age of 22. For 22 years, she's been living a falsehood. And so, me giving you permission to mourn also means that you, as the parent, might end up mourning indefinitely. And so, the whole idea is for you to ask yourself, did you assign the wrong gender to begin with? And if you did, which is what it is, then don't blame yourself. Don't make it something negative, because some parents don't have a child to mourn. The kid already took their life. 48% of these kids are seriously considered suicide in the last 12 months. So if your child is still alive, you need to ask yourself, how long is the mourning going to be? And if you're going to mourn at all, and if you're going to say, well, for how long, then maybe you shouldn't mourn at all, because my idea is to educate parents now so that in the future, we now start thinking about what we never thought about before. I'm not saying I didn't mourn. I'm saying that my child corrected me. She said, well, Mom, let's talk about this mourning for a minute. If the parent wants to mourn, what they're doing is the whole time they are mourning, they are not celebrating their child, though. And the child is finally, like your husband said, free. And so let's go back and analyze our what's behind the emotion. That's all I'm saying. By all means, express your emotions, but maybe you need a coach or a therapist or somebody to help you work through it. Because I had a father in my Facebook community that attempted suicide because his only son said he's gay. He wasn't even trans, a black man, because he made it mean something so horrendous, so bad that he attempted. I want you to just take a moment and hear me, which is why I said, I'm not asking you to not mourn. Mourn if you want to. What I'm saying is, let us be careful when you empower someone to mourn. The child is alive. The child has 2 eyes, 10 fingers, 10 toes. The child has not been diagnosed with cancer. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more things you could be mourning, except that the child has said, okay, this is who I am. And it all comes down to, what are you making it mean? If you make it mean, wow, finally you're free, then there's no room for mourning. If you make it mean, oh my God, what are my friends going to say? What are my parents saying? Then you're making it about you.
Right.
That's what I mean by the whole mourning thing. I'm not, are you kidding me? I'm a Nigerian Catholic immigrant. I was like, oh my God, what does this mean? Right? And until it was no longer, what does this mean? Because wait, it means that your child is the daughter you've been praying for, the daughter you've been wanting. Because I sent her a text one time, I said, I'm so happy that you're finally living authentically as a girl. Well, I don't know what I said. And then she said, no, I think I said, I've always wanted a daughter. And then she said, Mom, you've always had a daughter. So let's just think about that. So we parents, we have so many more things to worry about.
You just hit on the key factor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I've had my daughter every once in a while say to me, and we learn so much from everybody. And like I said, my DNA is I'm a lifelong learner. My spidey senses are always up. What can I learn? And one day she says to me, and I don't remember what it's about. She's like, Dad, it's not always about you.
Oh my God, that is so true.
The thing that really drives me, and I think is, you hit on it. I'd have to go back and look at the tape. But you were talking about, and what I do is, at the end of the day, parents, I'm going to send this out to all the parents. I'm going to say, parents, don't you want your children just to be happy?
Happy, yes.
Whether they're, things can always be worse. When you're in a situation like myself or Dr. Z, we've had our adversities. And when you're standing at the bottom and looking up, you're like, well, things could always, even though I think I'm at the bottom, things could always still be worse. So there's always people out there that are going to have it worse than you. But we learn so much from all these things.
I love it.
Right?
I love that, because this is my new book that's going to be dropping later in the summer. The first line at the back here says, Mom, it's not about you. That's
Bam.
exactly what that's exactly what my kid said to me. She was like, Mom, it's not about you. Because I was like, what are my friends going to say? How am I going to tell your nana? How, you know, what? She was like, Mom, for once,
Wow.
you're not the center of attraction. And I think attention, parents must understand that. Now, I can talk till I'm blue in the face. There'll be some parents who will never agree with me. And those are
Right.
not my clients, and that's okay. I'm not here to change everyone. I'm
Right.
not even here to change anyone at all. I'm just asking you to think about it when you dig your heels in. What really is driving that action?
Mm.
Well, I
Because
believe that you're picking up some sand dollars, right? Have you heard the sand dollar story where, the grandpa's picking up the sand dollars and he throws them back into the ocean? And the kid's like, Grandpa, there's thousands of
there are
them.
millions of them.
What difference is
Yes.
that going to make? He goes, flips another one in there and says, for that
Made
one
a
it did.
difference for that one.
Right?
Well, actually, I think it's the kid. The kid was throwing the $10. But no, I was gonna say. So you mentioned that even when your child was 2 or 3, you could see that there were tendencies there.
Yes.
So
I told my mother.
yeah,
Yes. Go ahead.
yeah. So when do you, as a parent, do you bring it up? Do you just lay silent and let them tell you when it's time
I love
to
it.
disclose? What's the best way?
That is $1 million question. And you know
Okay.
Bam. Great question.
the answer to every $1 million question is it depends. And I say that because your role as a parent, and if you listen to my second TEDx talk, you will hear me say your role is to just be an ally. If you
Mm.
notice it, do not go out of your way to antagonize it, which is what I did.
Mm.
I went out of my way to say, I will do whatever I have to do so that this kid stops acting like a girl. I said that. I did that.
Mhm.
Okay. So your role as a parent is to not antagonize what you see. Because
Mhm.
in any other realm, if your child was picking up on musical, I don't know, notes, you would encourage the child to play the piano. You wouldn't say, oh my God, don't play piano because musicians are poor. No, you would say, oh, do you want to, would you like piano lessons?
Sure.
So you can, and this is just me telling you now, you can, if you notice it and the relationship is such that, like I said, it depends, that there's that openness of communication, you
Mhm.
can ask the child indirectly, like, there's been so much talk about anti-LGBT this, anti-LGBT that. Do you have any friends who are queer?
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
like for them to come and I just want to meet them and get to know them. What you've done is you've planted the seeds in your child, like, oh, first of all, you're woke, right? Because you're
Yeah.
aware. And then secondly, ooh, you're actually inviting. So my second TED Talk talks about inviting in versus coming out. You need to create a safe space in your home for
Right.
your child to invite you in.
Yes.
Ultimately, it is up to them to tell you. The only reason my child never told me was because my home was not welcoming. I was
Right.
overtly transphobic. I was overtly homophobic. The child
Mhm.
could see me doing all these things, saying all these things. No child is going to tell you that they are because you might kick them out.
Right.
Nobody wants to be homeless. So I'm saying this with all of my full chest, like we say in Nigeria. If you notice your child has a tendency, do not antagonize. Have the conversation with yourself and your significant other. This is what I noticed about this kid. What if? And then just have an open mind and just start raising the child. What if? And if the child is, let me tell you something. Your child is going to be gay, whether they came out through your vajayjay or came out through
Mhm.
Dr. Zelda's vajayjay. The point I'm trying to make, your child is gay, is independent of the parents. So if your child came from another parent, they will still be gay. And so your job is to encourage the child to just be their full and whole and complete self.
Mm.
And maybe they might even invite you in sooner. But
Mm.
my kid changed the entire pronouns on Twitter, blocked me out of Twitter because she was living her authentic self in college. But every time she
Nice.
came back home, I put up this wall. So I never
Yeah.
found out. I
Yeah.
found out during the graduation at the award ceremony when the
Wow.
announcer was saying they this and they that for the award. And I was like,
Mhm.
I said, son, who are all these people getting the award? I thought it was just you. Because who are all these people? That is a true statement. And then my
Wow.
middle child was down and said, Mom, I think it's because such and such is non-binary. I'm like, fuck is that? What is non-binary? That
Yeah.
is how I found out.
Wow.
For all I know, my kid could be dead by now if I hadn't found out because I was not supportive. That's why I say what I say, that I'm not here to say don't go through your emotions. I'm saying don't make it about you. There are two different things. If your
Right.
sister,
Me.
if your sister is getting married, your best friend of all time, and you start crying and antagonizing her getting married, you're not going to be invited to the wedding
Right.
because you have negative energy. The same
Right.
thing. Your child is not going to invite you into their world because you're not earning your invitation. Now, making your sister's wedding about you is like, oh, but you're going to leave. Oh, but you're going to live so far away. Oh, my goodness, I won't be able to see my nieces and nephews. Oh, my. Nobody's going to invite you versus, oh, my goodness, I'm so excited. We get to come visit a new town. Oh, my God, and I'm going to get nieces and nephews. You see the same thing? It's two different reactions, but it's the same neutral circumstance. My sister is getting married. I'm going to change her name. Yes, I'm going to change her name. And you have to get a new name.
Yep.
You have to maybe new pronouns, which is another day's
Yep.
podcast interview. That's another day. But
Here's some forward progress. Meet them where they stand, moving
absolutely
forward together through unconditional love, empathy, compassion, understanding, acceptance. Give me 10 minutes and I'll come up with 50 more.
But here's the beautiful thing about what you said. And I'd say this, I use this example all the time. Dr. Zeldin, I know you attended my class, so you probably know the answer. If you see this flask laying at the side of the road, you're going to say, oh, somebody lost their flask. So we have been using they, them pronouns in singular forever. It's just that now your child says, well, I would prefer to be known as they, them, and now you have a problem with it. But when you don't know people's pronouns, you're actually supposed to default with they, them until you know. So the knowledge, we're learning all these things as we go along. And I am here for all of it. I'm so excited at just what the next 20, 30 years will be, because these children of nowadays, they are more accepting. Thankfully, the millennials and the Gen Zers, they are so open. They are so much more accepting. Except that they have access to guns.
You're just getting started. It sounds like to me. You're just getting started on this new chapter of your journey. Awesome.
What is the most common question that the parents have that come to you? Is there like a common theme, or is it probably runs the gamut, I would guess, but do you start to see
yes. So the question is what your husband mentioned earlier on, or rather Professor Professor P mentioned earlier on. It kind of alluded to that. The question is usually, how can I help me understand this? How can I support the child? And the answer to that is, how can you accept yourself? What the parents do is they replace their kids in the closet. When the kid comes out of the proverbial closet, the parent runs and hides because there's a combination of guilt, shame, and fear. That's three emotions are leading. So they hide. They don't want to talk about it. They don't. So you can't accept, affirm, support, understand what you have not even allowed yourself to first analyze. Now you suddenly become a parent of a transgender child. What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
It's like thinking about your child has, I'm going to use neurodiversity or autism as an example, because people know that more. Your child has just been diagnosed with autism. You don't go run and hide. You go say, okay, what does it mean? How can I help the child? Right? That's what you say. Except when it's LGBTQIAPP, whatever, you're like, oh my God, people are going to think I'm a bad parent. Like my ex-husband said that I made the child gay, things like that. So once you run away from the information, you're not, so they come and say, how can I accept my child? I don't know. I said, well, first of all, let's start with you accepting you.
Yeah.
That is the whole thing. So, but I do have a hard stop. I'm happy to come back to do part 2 if y'all want. This is like I said, this is something that definitely I know. Like I said, it's not a conversation that you can start and really finish because there's so many layers. We haven't even talked about gender fluidity. We didn't talk about sexual fluidity. The fact that gender is different from sexuality, right? That gender identity is different from sexuality. People think it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. You can have a transgender person who is gay. Think about that.
Right.
You can have a trans person, yes, who is bisexual.
There's a total master class in all of this.
Yes.
You can have multiple, probably a dozen episodes or so, and you still would be, there would be so much
and still
more
have more because remember, I'm also not transgender. I'm saying this from the privilege of a cisgendered woman who just happens to have a child who is trans. I'm not trans. Imagine if you were talking to a trans person. There's so much more for you to learn. Yes.
You're right.
So
well,
maybe
thank you so much, Dr. Lulu. Appreciate this podcast interview. Yes, look forward to part 2 because this is such an amazing topic and so relevant, to what we're facing.
I know you have to go. Any parting thoughts? 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, I have my first ever 3-day challenge coming up. It's titled All About Your Child's Gender. It's going to be 3 days. We're going to literally talk all about your child's gender. I want the parents to come and ask me any and every question you have because I can't remember everything. So it's on the last weekend in May. I have a free it's free. I have a Facebook page for that, and maybe I'll give you all the link. But literally, the Facebook page is a group is called I think it's called About Your Child's Gender. So just if you look that up, you'll find it, and then just join. And there's an opportunity for VIP tickets for that, so that maybe those people will get a free half hour with me. No, well, for VIP you get a half hour with me one-on-one to talk about your own particular issue. What exactly? Yeah, but I'm excited about that. It's the first time I've ever done that. I'm just like thankful that the idea came to me this past weekend. I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. So thank you so much.
So what we will do is we will put all of your links and all of that in the comments. 15 seconds. What's the easiest way for people to reach out and get a hold of you? I like LinkedIn because boom, you can hit a message.
Yeah, LinkedIn is good, but I prefer Instagram. So my Instagram is at Dr. Lulu Talk Radio because I have a radio show. So Dr. Lulu Talk Radio. And it's also the same thing for my Twitter and my YouTube channel. And you can go on my YouTube channel and get dozens of free videos on my YouTube page because I talk about this all day, every day on my YouTube channel. So if you go with at Dr. Lulu Talk Radio, you can pretty much pull up those 3 places. And then if you look up Dr. Lulu, really, I am the most popular Dr. Lulu on the internet. So you can find everything about me. So I appreciate that.
Awesome.
Good for you.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I was interviewed by Oprah, so I'm very popular.
Wow.
I mean, everybody does.
I want to meet Oprah.
Yes.
I want to meet her next time you talk to her.
I will. So yes.
All right. And as
always, thank you in advance. Woo-hoo.
Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. Just thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. Yeah, we're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah. We're thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing and learning and knowing. Yeah, I was thinking and growing and learning and knowing and thinking and growing